It's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's the Gloop Guys.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Glute Guys Network. I'm Dr. Aaron. We're available on Spotify and on YouTube.
And I'm Dr. Tom, and we're back again to bring you some health news and give our insights as physical therapists.
So, today we have a special guest right here.
I'm Rebecca Hill. I'm a marriage and family therapist.
So, a little background on Becky here. Master's in Marriage and Family Therapy and a bachelor's in Psychology. Is there anything else you want to go into, Becky, or about yourself?
That about sums it up. I just got my certification to be a certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor, so that was new.
Wow.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We should have put that in the credentials. That would have been nice.
She left that one as a surprise.
there.
We're giving a surprise guest. She
Wow.
has a surprise credential. That's good.
I like it. So, we talked about a few different topics that we're going to go into today.
Yeah.
First of all, being smoking, nicotine, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any way in particular you want to get started with it?
I think I'll just start by saying I think people don't really realize the impact of tobacco on mental health. It's actually really interesting. When I learned this, I was kind of blown away by it. But when people put tobacco down or cigarettes down, they actually find that anxiety and depression improves as if they were taking one psych medication. So it's not a cure-all, but it does help mental health for people to be tobacco-free.
That's interesting. Is there any reason you think that it affects mental health like that?
I think there's a few different reasons. I think sometimes tobacco is used in social settings, and so it can almost be like if there's anxiety in social settings, you pick up the cigarette. So it can like help boost people's confidence to put the cigarettes down. I'm sure there's other reasons too, like more in the chemistry.
I guess almost like a coping mechanism too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels sort of nice, so you just keep on doing it.
Yeah.
I've definitely known a few people that have gotten addicted to it.
Not anymore.
No.
I put the tin down. So someone who's a former user of the drug itself, nicotine, I used to use Zins. So I used the pouches. They're very popular nowadays too. But I can say from my experience with like using it, it kind of it made you a lot more jittery, and it kind of like sped a lot of things up for you. So then when I finally put it down, I was able to kind of just feel a little bit more like calm and relaxed in a sense, which that was the reason I picked it up in the first place. So it's kind of funny how it works. You start to use it because you think it's calming you down, and it's actually making it a lot worse.
Yeah, I guess that goes along with what you were saying too.
Yeah.
Like anxiety, depression, things like that are worse when you're taking it.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it does, like you said, it has to do with the chemical properties of what nicotine does in the brain with like nicotinic receptors. It's an exciter, so it kind of speeds everything up, makes you all jittery and excited.
Yeah. It is kind of ironic, right? Because people, say that nicotine helps them like de-stress and calm down, but it is a stimulant. So it does kind of rev you up and
exactly
make you jittery.
That's why like the first cigarette or use of nicotine in the morning is big for everybody. And you hear like users often say that first one in the morning is their favorite one.
Yeah.
I can say for a fact the very first time that I was using like Zyn in the morning was always my favorite one in the morning too. So from experience, you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long were you using it for? If you don't mind me asking?
Just a year. I did it for a year, but I was heavily using them by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you saw me when I was still using them, and I told you I think I was using anywhere from 12 to 15 of them in a day.
Yeah.
And one, like 10 of them has about 15 in it, so.
Yeah. So how'd you stop?
That wasn't fun.
It.
That was cold turkey. I decided in September that I was going to just go completely cold turkey. I had a lot of different reasonings. One, of course, being my own like mental health. I wanted to make sure to get on top of that, so that was big.
Yeah.
Some of it was like saving money and whatnot too, and I just wanted to kind of be like the best version of myself. So that was good.
Mm-hmm.
The girlfriend and I were like planning a trip to Italy, and I was like, one way to save money is if I just stop using these damn things.
Yeah.
How much are those a pack?
$6.99 before tax.
Yeah. That's up, right?
$7.35. I bought a lot of them in my time. So,
but if you do that for a full year, then what does that turn out to for every day having a whole pack?
That's a good question. I'm going to calculate that while you guys are talking, but it
would be probably 2,500.
We'll round down to let's round up to $7.35 is what I think they were when I was buying them. Let's say I was using a 10 a day.
Had to save up that money for some pasta in Italy, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
priorities.
$2,682.75.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I probably spent about near that in a year. So kind of crazy when you think about it.
So Becky, I got a scenario for you.
All right.
Let's say one day, you're at our house and you walk outside, you see me and Dr. Tom here smoking a stogie outside. And it turns out we've been smoking stogies for the last 2 years. How would you suggest that we stop smoking those stogies?
Oh man. Well, besides just ripping them out of your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I think there's a really long answer. So, I think you are in the minority in the cold turkey category. So people who go cold turkey tend to have a 1 to 3% success rate of gaining freedom from tobacco. So yeah, you're in that little minority, which is awesome that you did that.
Let me tell you, there were some rough times with it. But so far since end of September, I haven't touched them. So
It's awesome.
No late night phone calls or anything.
in those time periods, yeah.
But yeah, so cold turkey usually doesn't work.
Yeah, so there are some better alternatives with a higher percentage likelihood of gaining freedom from tobacco. So there's some medications out there. If you've heard of Chantix, that was like the brand name.
I have not. Chantix.
Yeah, the generic is Varenicline, and that's what's available now.
Varenicline.
I have a question. Was there commercials for that medication? What's it?
Chantix?
Chantix? Why do I feel like I saw commercials for that?
Maybe you did.
I might have. I'm very curious if there was.
You may or may not know, but do you have any idea what they actually do?
Varenicline?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it works on the acetylcholine receptors in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, and nicotine is similar in shape and size.
Mm-hmm.
So nicotine binds to these acetylcholine receptors, and so this medication works on those receptors in the brain. The man who trained me, Dr. Franclioni at UPenn, I think he summed it up really well. This medication helps your brain fall out of love with nicotine, essentially.
Interesting.
And people have about a 40% chance with that gaining freedom from tobacco. So that's kind of the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it attaches to a similar receptor, and it's not as addicting as nicotine. So it almost competes for it.
Yeah. So it works on the same receptors. So it tricks the brain into thinking that nicotine's around, even if it's not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Interesting.
Does it help to do two things at once, like quit cold turkey and take your meds?
Well, it's kind of just like a tool in the toolbox.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if you're trying to put the cigarettes down or the cigars down or whatever it is, it's like this medication is just there to help you and help the process not be so miserable.
And a little disclaimer: me and Dr. Tom aren't smoking stogies outside. This is obviously a hypothetical scenario.
I quit using Zins and went right to the harder stuff, right? Decided, you know what? This isn't good enough.
That's the best thing to do.
I quit Zins, but I still smoke cigarettes. That's backwards.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, all hypothetical.
But what other ideas do you have? We got some meds. We got quitting cold turkey.
Cold turkey's an option.
Yeah.
It might not be the most.
I might not recommend it after. I mean, I was only a year user. I don't know if it changes it depending on. But I was at the end. I was a heavy user, so I knew that cold turkey was going to be something I had to try. And it was miserable for about 2 weeks were the roughest, and then after that, it got a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
But I had tried cold turkey once before, and only made it to a week, and then I went right back to them.
So that's good to have some motivation for it too.
Yeah. I had a lot of stuff on the table that I was like, I've got bigger reasons than just me to quit. So that was kind of a good feeling. It helped me drive through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I need to learn more about those Zyn pouches because I wonder what else is in there, like chemicals or flavorings or.
Oh yeah,
sure. That's something we could figure out real quick.
Nicotine's the biggest chemical that's in it, and then flavoring. There's actually a guy on Instagram I follow, and he tested and showed all the chemicals and whatnot in it. It wasn't too crazy as many chemicals as you'd think.
What's his name? We could give him a nice shout out.
That was Mass Spec something. It's something along those lines. I'll figure it out. But he tests a lot of stuff like that, and a lot of it was actually just the nicotine powder was the biggest chemical that was in it. And it's not tobacco based, so the whole thing with Zyn, to our current knowledge, and no big disclaimer on this could change, but they're not cancer causing,
Yeah.
as far as we know right now.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's always something you have to be careful about. It's like with vaping.
Mhm.
A lot of people say vaping isn't bad for you.
Yeah, but I mean, putting water vapor in your lungs is definitely not a good idea either.
Putting any junk in your lungs is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, using any like non-natural substance and putting it into your body is not good for you in any quantity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I learned this kind of crazy fact actually about vapes. So any of the buttery flavors, like butterscotch or like any buttery flavors, you know that like old school movie popcorn that had the fake butter on it?
yeah,
There was this chemical that they used to make the fake butter taste like real butter called diacetyl. And then they found out that that causes popcorn lung, they call it. It's like this scarring in your lung.
mm-hmm.
And so any of the buttery vapes, you just need to watch out because like there's a possibility of diacetyl getting into your body, and that's bad news bears.
So you're saying that I shouldn't eat popcorn at the movie theater?
No,
anymore?
I'm saying old school movie popcorn.
Back in the day when they didn't
Yeah.
care what was in stuff.
I'm gonna get sued by movie theaters now, but
But back to Zyn real quick. The stuff in Zyn is nicotine salt, stabilizers, which is hydroxyl propyl cellulose, fillers, which is a few different things, pH adjusters, and sweeteners.
Yep. So majority is flavoring. The majority is nicotine, and then little hints of like flavoring and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's bad. I mean, for a lot of reasons other than the nicotine, but it's also very heavily used with like youths nowadays too. A lot of kids are starting to pick it up too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff online about the amount that kids using it. It's pretty high. I think it was something like 20 or 30% in some states.
Yep.
Of
Nicotine
teens
uses
actually use it.
that's kind of wild, actually.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
I feel like nicotine use ever since vapes became a large thing, it has gone up with kids.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, Zyns. The nice part about them is like if you dipped tobacco, everybody used to see the fat lip that you would have. Zyns are so like slim and thin that you can't ever really see if there's one in.
Mm-hmm.
So kids have a lot easier chance of hiding this from like parents and whatnot. Parents might not know what it is.
I mean, people when I was in high school were still dipping, and they didn't care at all.
Crazy.
You just find bottles all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dip and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Those are disgusting too.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
Not a good habit.
Yeah.
The Zyns aren't either, but it's like, okay, at least it's not as disgusting.
Well, it is funny because like when we were kids and we learned about smoking and stuff like that, like I'd be like, why are our parents so dumb? Why do they start smoking? And then there's just like a new thing that just takes over for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like they used to think cigarettes were healthy,
Mm-hmm.
like before we found all the bad stuff for it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we've heard of a lot of people going to the hospital, or not a lot, or I don't know how many actually, go from vaping. There's a specific condition for vaping. Do you know what it is?
A condition for vaping.
There's a condition that they found, or I thought they found was associated with vaping.
I thought popcorn lung was part of that. Was the scarring in the
Maybe it
lungs
was
with that?
popcorn.
Maybe. I know
We'll
the
look it
CDC. Yeah, can fact check that. I know the CDC said that, like, for adults, completely switching from combustible tobacco products, cigars or cigarettes, to vaping is better. So it's safer. It doesn't make it safe, but
That's
there's
interesting.
less carcinogens in vapes than there are in cigarettes.
Would you ever recommend it to a patient that's trying to quit?
Vaping? I wouldn't, because there's safe alternatives like nicotine replacement therapy.
Yeah. So that's going back to what we were talking about before. Nicotine
Full
replacement
circle.
therapy.
Yeah. So there's 5 different kinds. People, I think, most often think about the patch,
Yeah.
the nicotine patch, which is awesome. So that goes on your skin for 24 hours. It slowly releases nicotine into your body throughout the day to kind of prevent cravings from happening and kind of keep the withdrawal under control.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people put the patch on and they expect their cravings to like disappear, and that would be nice if they did, but they usually don't. So it can help manage them, but usually there's still some cravings there. So good thing we have these other 4 kinds of nicotine replacement therapy to use in the moment if you're like desperately craving a cigarette. So things like nicotine lozenges and nicotine gum, and then there's also nasal spray.
Interesting. I don't know about that one.
There's a nicotine nasal spray, and there's an inhaler as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't want a good snort halfway through the day?
I mean,
It's not the point of nicotine. We're trying to stop it, not use it more. Ariel's found a better use.
Yeah. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do bad things. Don't do drugs.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so there's definitely a lot of options. And are you supposed to use them all together?
Yeah, you can combine. People have better outcomes when they combine, actually, different kinds of nicotine replacement therapy.
I know you said that the other drug, the Chantix, is like a 40% chance.
Mhm.
And then quitting cold turkey is what, like 30% chance?
No, it's 1 to 3.
1 to 3, cold turkey. 1 to 3%.
Oh, 33% chance. But do you have any idea what those are around?
Nicotine replacement therapy is 30 to 35% chance success rate. If you combine them, so like if you use the patch and the gum, it goes up. So people have better.
That makes sense. The more you have, the merrier.
Yeah.
Hopefully you crave it a little bit less.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some people are hesitant to use nicotine replacement therapy because they're like, I'm trying to like get off of nicotine. Why am I going to like substitute nicotine?
Mm-hmm.
And nicotine itself isn't dangerous. It's all the other added chemicals and it's the carcinogens and like the combustion that happens when you light a cig is like getting all the dangerous things into your body.
Yeah.
So,
You're inhaling things into your lungs that just aren't good to be inhaled.
yeah.
Yeah.
We want to keep our lungs healthy, right? We need them.
That's what I was nervous to even just try to lower like my dosage of nicotine, because in my brain, like what you just said, like I was like, I'm just trying to just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah.
When honestly, if I just did the replacement therapy, maybe it would have been a little bit easier for me to go through it. But that was the one like fear that I had with it. I was just like, I don't really want to try to lower it. I think I'll still abuse it, so let me just get away from it altogether.
Yeah. I don't think you're the only one. I think it's kind of counterintuitive. Like, I'm trying to get away from nicotine. Why am I going to use more nicotine?
It was kind of confusing to think about. Yeah. Just like I shouldn't, like someone told me like Zins have like 6 milligrams and 3 milligrams, and then I use the 6s, and they're like, oh, just use the 3s. I'm like, no, I'll just use the 3s. Like, so it wouldn't work for me. But it's good to know that if you combine all those kind of together, you get better results with it too.
Are there any negative effects?
I mean, sometimes with the patch, there can be some skin irritation.
That's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a few years of your life back from not smoking and get a little skin rash.
Yeah.
I'll take the skin rash.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Some people have like disturbances with their sleep if they leave the patch on.
That makes sense. Nicotine's a stimulant? Is that what we said before?
Yeah.
So that makes sense. If you have nicotine overnight, you're not going to sleep as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if you're like waking up during the night to smoke, it can still help to have the patch on and keep it on even if
That makes sense because you crave it at night, so you just get up and go take a toke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like there's people who they just have to have like a cigarette every couple of hours or every hour and whatnot. So some people will wake up in the middle of the night just to use nicotine too.
I remember this guy in college would have like a pack or two a day. And it was always surprising. So we'd be sitting in class and like, I'm going out for a smoke.
Yeah.
He dropped out. I don't know whatever happened to that guy.
Oh, he's good.
Probably had to go smoke cigarettes.
Maybe he... Never mind. Maybe we should change the subject. So we got 3 things. The nicotine replacement stuff, the other drug that I forgot, Chantix, quitting cold turkey. Are there any other ones?
Those are the main ones. Some people take Wellbutrin as well. That's another medication. Or bupropion, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But those are all the main ones. I will say too, I think a lot of people use nicotine replacement maybe incorrectly because they're not properly like
Interesting.
educated on it, and I just think there's not a lot of education out there about it. But like gum, for example, people think, oh, I just chew nicotine gum like regular gum. But when you do it that way, you're swallowing the nicotine and your stomach acid just like destroys it. So your body's not actually absorbing it. So what you want to actually do is like make it as flat as you can and just like press the gum up against your cheek and like park it there and leave it there. So it absorbs into your body through the lining in your mouth.
So you use it like you're dipping, but it's gum.
Exactly.
just like Zins. That's how like it gets in that same exact way too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Same thing with the lozenges. You just want to leave it under your tongue or just let it hang out.
I think I've heard that with the lozenges before. I don't know if I've ever heard that with the gum though. I definitely didn't know that you're supposed to do that.
I've heard that with the gum that you're supposed to kind of like dip it, basically.
Yeah. I think good to know because if you're chewing it like normal gum and it's not working.
Yeah,
you're like,
I mean, at that point, you're just getting an upset stomach
Yeah.
and you're not feeling good overall. So,
no one wants that.
but when it comes down to it, for quitting tobacco and nicotine products, it sounds like just like education is one of the biggest things. You know, like even for myself, like I wasn't educated enough on some of the ways to quit, so I chose one of the harder routes, not thinking. So, more of the education, you know, you go and see your healthcare providers that can guide you through it a lot better than you just try to drive yourself through it.
Yeah. So like we have the medications. Is there anything you would do with the person that has an addiction?
Yeah, I think counseling can be really helpful, just having that support and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with recovery from any other substance, having either a therapist or other like social supports who are just like encouraging you can be such a help to motivation when it gets hard. And also just another place of like getting that education and learning more.
How do you find, or how is it similar to like alcohol? Like if you're trying to quit alcohol versus nicotine, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great.
I like what you did there. You just segued it from tobacco to alcohol.
Yeah.
That was good.
Are you asking like how it's similar to other addictions?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Well, it is an addiction.
Yeah.
You know, so it really, so many things are the same. Like we kind of take a 3-prong approach with treating any addiction. We try to get people connected with therapy.
Mm-hmm.
We try to get people connected with medications, and we try to get people connected with their social supports and sober supports. So same thing with smoking. You know, get people connected with a therapist and that support with other people in their life who don't smoke that they can hang out with socially, and the medications that we talked about.
Do you find that as far as social support, it's always helpful?
I would say so. What would you say as someone who has walked away from nicotine? Do you
No,
feel
very, very much so. Having like a social support for like friends who like don't use it. I have friends who, for me, I guess it's a little different because I was dipping. So like going to a bar and smelling somebody smoke a cigarette didn't give me the itch to like want to use, but seeing somebody like open a tin and throw it in kind of would trigger me at times too.
Yeah.
So being around people who weren't using it, or like I have friends who use it who just wouldn't use it in front of me, which I appreciated a lot, was big because it just, and now I'm not thinking about it.
Right.
The hardest part is the mental connections that you make with the substance that you're like, I like fishing, and when I used to fish, I used to use them often too. Very just like it sits in there as you're reeling around. So my buddy who goes fishing with me, he stopped using it when he was with me. So this way I didn't associate the two activities. So my social life had to change a little bit.
Yeah, the reason I ask is like from a physical therapy thought of a different but sort of similar treating our patients. There's a lot of times where family members are very helpful and sometimes they're really not helpful. Like for someone that works in geriatrics, I have some family members that are gonna like really push the person to do better and get them everything they need, and I have some that are like, no, they can't move. They're gonna hurt themselves, and they just get worse because their family members are not letting them do anything.
Yeah.
It's like that coddling kind of situation. So
yeah, like you're being coddled a little bit too much, and I guess it's sort of different with smoking or nicotine because it's like people know it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would hope by now most people know it's bad, but I'm sure there's still people that think it's good for you.
Hey, listen, I used it. I knew it was bad. Still did it. People still just do bad things for themselves.
Well, I guess I meant more so like your family would probably push you more to stop it, whereas exercise people don't necessarily always think of as a universal good.
Yeah, true.
Although it is.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I run groups, so group therapy, and we talk about smoking all the time. It's really amazing actually being in a room full of people who have 6 months sober or 2 years sober from alcohol or methamphetamine or whatever it is. And they've walked away from all these substances, but most of them are still smoking. And it's like the one thing that lingers in their life is this tobacco. And so our groups are pretty long. They're a few hours, so they get some breaks. And they're constantly all the time like, oh, can I bum a cigarette? Like, oh, like, can I get a light? And it's like, guys, help each other out here. Like,
why do we all quit this together?
Doing this. What are you doing?
I just want to shake them.
It's like we got all the other addictions down except for this one. Like, come on.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do they get more addicted to smoking than the other stuff? Or is that too hard?
I wonder. I think the other question would be, why do they stop the other addictions and not the smoking? And I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, the like drinking and the alcohol use, that can become a problem because you're a completely different person when you're drunk. When you're smoking a cigarette, you get a little bit of a head rush and it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could smoke a cigarette and drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You just you don't like black out after having a bunch of cigarettes like you do alcohol. Right? It's different.
Yeah.
You might get sick,
Well, here's
you
a
feel
fun
ill,
question.
but
How many cigarettes can you have before you black out? We don't need the answer to that. We will not look it up.
no.
Don't do that. You will not black out.
I sense something I'm cutting out of this video. No, but it is interesting to think about like that. It's. I wonder if people don't look at it as like, oh, it's not that bad of an addiction because it's like the only harm I'm doing is to myself. It's not like I'm harming the people and things around me.
Well, it doesn't have like a short-term thing you feel that's really awful.
That can be
you don't get
detrimental.
hungover, as far as I know, from a cigarette. Whereas
No.
I think most other drugs and alcohol, like you get hungover or you feel terrible the next day.
Mm-hmm. And it changes your like the other ones really drastically change your personality and how you act and how you function. Like the guy who on one corner lights up a cigarette is going to act a lot different than the guy who just lit up a meth pipe on the other one. So that's the way that I kind of look at it. It's not as bad as an addiction.
Well, yeah, like there's not like you don't like look at a person like, oh, that person's a smoker. But you could look at a person sometimes and they're acting super weird. They're, that person,
They're on drugs.
They're on some type of drug.
Yeah.
You usually don't think smoking is the one.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong with that, but that's what I feel like with those other like people in those meetings, and maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I had a client say to me, like, oh, like the consequences are so long term. Like I'm 27, like if I'm gonna get COPD, like that's for later on.
Future me problem.
Future me problem.
Yeah.
And also, people go into rehabs non-smokers and come out smoking. It's really, people look at it like a coping skill or like, oh, I need something. Like if I'm walking away from meth, I need something to, some kind of substance in my life. So it's kind of looked at as like a lesser evil sometimes too.
That's interesting.
I guess it's just like you said, it's a coping mechanism. They get stressed out from stopping the other addiction. And they're like, what's another thing I can grab onto? So makes sense.
Yeah, I think unfortunately it is kind of looked at like a coping skill. It's just not a healthy one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other negative coping skills?
Drugs.
No, they recover from drugs. Where like the big one is mostly
Oh.
smoking. Yeah. Do you notice anything else that people will do that you probably shouldn't do that one?
Like other unhealthy things people do instead.
To quit.
Smoking's probably the biggest one, I would say off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It makes sense though. It really does. Like having a different thing to cope.
Yeah. I wondered, I mean, I know people sometimes use like food too. You see like the large weight gain could be again, it's longer term than smoking, I would think also, to pack on like that much weight before you can stop it.
Mm-hmm.
But you see other kinds of like weird addictions, I guess, too.
Yeah, and that could be going down a whole nother rabbit hole.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, interesting. Well, the other thing we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I know that was a lot on that, but we also were going to talk about burnout today. Now, there are a lot of different types of burnout. Was there any one in particular you were thinking of? Or any, I guess, maybe job or type of person that you would expect to see it with?
I think really any healthcare professions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nurses, doctors, physical therapists, any jobs where you're like taking care of other people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it naturally kind of comes with that higher risk of almost forgetting to take care of you because you have other people to look out for.
That's actually what I say to a lot of my patients, like caregivers, that you need to leave the patient, not like leave them and have nothing to do, but like take time away from them because like if you don't have any time to yourself, you're just going to go crazy.
Yeah. I had a patient who had a loved one got injured in like another state completely, and they were driving out to that state to like check on them and take care of them and whatnot. And the one time that I had seen them, they were like, I just want to go and like see a movie. So I was just like, listen, there's nothing that you can do to help that other loved one in the other state. They're hanging out in a hospital bed. They're going to be okay right now. Nothing's going to change. I was like, go see a movie, go see a show, do something for you. Because that's important too.
It is tough though, because like you do know sometimes someone like a family member is in a place like that, and you're like, or the family member themselves is like, oh, no one ever comes to visit me, and a lot of times no one does come to visit them. So it does get depressing from that standpoint too.
You start to feel a sense of guilt with it too, like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't have gone and done that.
Yeah, so it's hard to, I guess, decide exactly how much you should go or shouldn't go.
Yeah,
I think you make a good point too. Like, even if it's not your professional role to take care of people, even if it's like your like informal role, if you're caring for like someone who's sick or a parent or a child who's sick, like yeah, it's like you have to take time for you.
yeah, it's you have a life to live too. It's I don't know. I feel like it's looked at bad sometimes to like feel selfish in that sense, but sometimes you have to be selfish like that.
So do you find you have a lot of burnout patients?
Do I burn out patients?
Or like patients who have like a lot of burnout and just affecting their life in general?
I think some, yeah. I have some clients who are like caring for their aging parents. And they're trying to like balance their mental health and their recovery with also taking care of their loved ones. And it's like that really tricky fine line that you have to find in that balance. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to find the happy medium.
So how would you cope with burnout?
Burnout.
Smoking?
No. This whole podcast, Aaron. Have you heard nothing from him? I'm just kidding. How do you cope with burnout?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You're saying you have to be selfish sometimes. And I mean, I also like to think of it as like you're not really being selfish if it's self-care. You know?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it too. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that, but that's definitely true. You have to like almost treat yourself before you treat other people. Like if you're not in a good spot, you're not going to be able to help the people in the ways that they need.
It's the good old airplane mask situation. Gotta secure your own before you secure someone else's. If you're all burnt out and
that was deep.
Yeah, I don't even think about it. It's just like, how are you going to be able to provide adequate care for somebody if you show up to work and you're like, I don't even want to be here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely see it a lot. I think we see it more after COVID too. I think that
especially in like nurses and whatnot, because they're still getting overworked like crazy.
I think any healthcare.
Yeah,
like physical therapists, occupational therapists. If you go to a rehab setting, there's just not enough therapists. There's not enough nurses. There's not enough aides. There's not enough anything, honestly.
A lot of it has to do with how healthcare has changed since COVID too. It's changed a lot. I mean. One being like the issue with reimbursement rates that are constantly declining. So, we're having less people go into the profession.
Yeah.
So there's still the same, or if not more patients with less therapists who can treat them now. And we're not getting paid enough for them. So we have to slam our schedules.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I'm actually curious too, and I want to look up the statistic, but I don't know if you remember when we were in grad school, they said that the average time for a physical therapist to feel burnt out after graduation was 7 years into the career.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically. I was just like, all right, so by year 7, I'm going to be done with this.
Are you burnt out?
Not yet, no.
Wow. 2 more years.
You got 2 more good years left until you burn out, apparently. But I am curious to see what that statistic, if it's changed now since COVID, if they've done any more research on it too. But that was the statistic that I had remembered.
Yeah, it's like there's something really wrong with that number. If it takes 7 years for you to get burnt out, it's like something's wrong.
I do think some of it has to do with the younger population too, even more so than before. Like it seems like, well, this makes me feel old, but kids nowadays like seem to not last in jobs as long as they used to. Like I definitely know a lot of people that have graduated, I guess like 5 years ago, and then from undergrad probably like 8 or 9 years ago, and they've already had like 5 jobs.
Yeah.
Like you don't really see consistency, people staying with the same job. But I guess that could be for a variety of reasons too. Like it could be burnout.
Could be.
I mean, I know some of my classmates already from PT school have said they want to do different things.
It makes sense because the new statistic says as early as 5 years.
Wow.
So funny that you're saying that some of them want to switch, and you're on your 5th. You've just finished your 5th year.
That explains a lot.
But yeah, they said physical therapists specifically experience burnout as early as 5 years into their career, and many reporting significant within the first decade. So,
Yeah.
but it's all dependent on the type of practice and everything.
Do you think there's anything you do to stop burnout?
Like just me myself?
Yeah.
I just do a lot of like what we were talking about before, just like self-care things. Like when like time is done at work, I'll stay and try to get like some stuff done, but I won't stay overly late and just say like, hey, I'll pick this up tomorrow. I make sure I don't get myself too crazy backed up, but I put it down when my brain has just had enough.
Yeah. Like I make sure my notes are done by Friday.
Yeah.
If I was doing notes the whole weekend, I'd be miserable.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know some people have like a laundry list of notes that they have to finish.
Yeah.
It's like pretty
It's
ridiculous.
usually me. That's a big problem.
I
wasn't pointing at anybody out there.
I've had some before too. I mean, just with the outpatient setting, sometimes you see a lot of people that like a day, so that can happen as well too. If
My
not
job's
fun.
easy.
Yes, no, but it's just different settings. You see different clientele.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like a big difference too between our notes is mine are a lot longer, definitely.
Yeah.
That being said, if you have to do like 30 notes for a day, then 7 long notes is definitely better than 30 short ones.
ones. Understandable.
Yeah.
Do you have a difference between Medicare notes and other notes? Or are they all
Yeah, the Medicare ones typically like they require that I have to like there's certain requirements that I have to put in for them. They're a little bit more detail oriented than some of the other providers as well too. But typically I stay within the Medicare guidelines as I do like the everyday ones. So the notes to me are the same. Some providers might write less for certain notes. I'm always writing the same amount.
Yeah.
So I'm writing that amount for Medicare, then the other patients deserve that amount too.
Sort of from an insurance thing with Becky, do you have trouble with insurance a lot, or does everything cover?
I feel like everyone does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're not having a problem with insurance, then you're doing something
I
wrong.
don't know. I was asking. Yeah, I know it's always a pain. I had a patient that we just had a discharge because she was getting wound care, so she was under Medicare Part A. Medicare Part A is what you get like right after the hospital, or if you're in a rehab. Then Medicare Part B is technically like outpatient, like you go to a facility most of the time. We're Part B, so because she had wound care at Part A and we're Part B, we had to discharge her.
And it's frustrating when like that's the reason you can't give someone care. It's just like
And it was a person who was doing well too. Well, doing pretty well.
Progressing still.
Yeah, she was progressing.
It was like
she
a
had
plateaued.
Yeah, she had some tough stuff that she would have to work past. That she might not be able to, honestly, but I mean, you have to at least put your best foot forward. And if you can't, if insurance sort of blocks things.
Yeah. See, I run into the issue with like motor vehicle patients. Like, I treat a lot of motor vehicle accident patients. And it's so funny that like every motor vehicle patient gets treated the same by insurance, meaning that like it's a cookie cutter. So specifically, New Jersey has like the care path they call it for these individuals, and it's like from the time of the accident to like X month. By X month, they should be better. It doesn't matter if you broke both your legs and both your arms, and the other guy only sprained his wrist. They think that you should be better at that in that same time frame.
Yeah, it's sort of idiocracy.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But that's what we have to deal with.
I have a patient like that now who we went through Liberty Mutual, and it was a disaster. Like, we'd wait for a month to get approved. They'd give us 12 visits. We'd go through it, and then we'd need it again so fast.
Because they expire inside of 1 month too.
Yeah. They give you a certain time frame that you have to do them in. So it doesn't actually matter that you have 12 visits.
Yeah.
When you get it canceled because someone has to take a dump in the morning.
See, different populations. Yeah. I might not experience that.
Have you ever had someone cancel because they had to take a dump?
I have not. I just think that would be something different.
Very different populations. Very different populations.
But I think going back to the burnout thing, like I think it's because
we had a little bit of a tangent there.
I think it's so easy to get burnt out when you're looking at like all the notes you have to do and like all the insurance claims and the treatment plans and all that stuff. And I think it really helps with burnout to go back to like, okay, why am I even doing this? Like I can look at the notes and the treatment plans and all the admin stuff, but at the end of the day, it's about people, right? And helping them like live a better quality of life. And I think it's a lot harder to get burnt out if you're like reminding yourself of that. Of like, I'm here to like serve these people and help them. And
Yeah, you're doing it for a reason.
yeah.
Not just to, I mean, some people just do it to make money, but
Sure.
honestly, if you're in any of our jobs, you do it to make money, you probably chose the wrong
You're gonna be a millionaire. We all chose these jobs for the reason
Yeah.
that we like to help people too. So that's
Yeah.
it is good to have those reminders, and that's something that like my girlfriend was even just talking about last week with me. That it's just like nice to like think about like you're making like all these kinds of differences in these people's lives too.
Mhm.
For sure.
Shout out to Holly.
Yeah.
It's true. She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That made me lose my train of thought so bad. Huh.
You want a cigarette to help you jog your memory?
You want to go outside?
Yeah.
Again, we are not smoking any cigarettes. I think that's probably everything we wanted to talk about, right? Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Becky?
No, thanks for having me. Good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
We will be
appreciate
addressed as such. Yes, we are the good guys.
It always has to be in a pair too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Thank you for coming on. It was awesome.
It was.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to Becky again for having us on. Have a nice day. Becky?